This is Texans TV. Texans Extra Points is sponsored by BHP and by Reliant, the official energy provider of the Houston Texans, and by your Houston area Ford dealers. Ford is the best in Texas.
We are ready to rock at NRG Stadium. Watt gets him down this time. JJ with the sack. Rock and roll. Touchdown. Deshaun Watson.
Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, however you're watching this. This is Texans Extra Points, and we're very happy that you're with us. My name's Drew Dougherty, I'm your host, and we've got, to my left, the voice of the Houston Texans, Marc Vandermeer. We're going to solve some problems today. Does that sound good to you?
Let's solve 0-3. Let's do that.
Let's do that because that's what we do here on Texans Extra Points, and you're going to get better, we're going to get better, and the Texans are going to get better. But we start with some news of the week, and for that we turn to, well, Red Diamond Iced Tea and the quick hits, because the Texans are gunning for W number one. Haven't had one since the playoffs here against Buffalo, and before that in the regular season, week 16 at Tampa Bay. So how do the Texans go about getting back in the win column? Well, some of the team's leaders described what they must do.
There's a lot of opportunities out there. We got to keep building and keep pushing forward. I can't let myself get discouraged. Every week is a new week. We missed out on this week, and now we're sitting at 0-3. But at the end of the day, the one thing we can do is try to be 1-0 next week and just keep building.
Earlier in the week, there were news reports that the Texans were interested in trying out Baltimore Ravens safety, Seattle Seahawks safety, and former University of Texas product, Earl Thomas. He, along with a group of others, though, were ultimately told, hey, hang loose.
Earl Thomas is a hell of a player. He's had a great career, and, again, we had a bunch of guys in, and we decided to cancel. And, we'll see how it goes, moving forward. Minnesota
in a very similar predicament to the Houston Texans. They're 0-3 as well. But if you listen to Houston, they're a dangerous 0-3.
They just do a great job of having everything look the same. So it's very hard, you're planning to run, and then they're taking a shot. So I think they do a great job schematically, again, of just keeping you off balance. They don't let you guess. They don't have a lot of tells to what they're doing formationally, where a lot of teams do. So because of that, always a 50-50 down.
And it won't be a full house at NRG Stadium on Sunday, but there will be fans in the stands for the first time this season. Because of COVID-19, no fans in the first go-round, week 2 against the Ravens, but that changes against the Vikings, and the Texans are very happy to have some warm bodies cheering for them back inside the stadium.
I'm excited about it. I played here as a visitor back in 2012, and it was rocking. This place was wild. Everybody was loud, and I expect even with a minimal crowd, like that, it'll still be loud. I think it was 17,000 in Kansas City, and they got it pretty rocking. So I expect our fans to come out and show up, and hopefully we can give them something to cheer about.
Okay, that's some of the news from the week that was. But Marc, let's start off with just something sort of out there. This has been a weird week, not just for the Houston Texans, but for the Minnesota Vikings as well. A very under-the-radar, weird week. Wouldn't you agree?
Well, absolutely. And when the Titans and Pittsburgh game, when that was going to be moved to Monday or Tuesday, it felt like kind of a hurricane situation or something like that. Yeah. It is a weird week, but hopefully the weirdness ends when they kick off at noon on Sunday.
Yeah, weird is one word that starts with W. Win is another. So what do the Texans need to do offensively that's different than what they've been doing to get that win to happen? What must change in your eyes?
I think they've moved the ball pretty well in the first halves of these games so far. They played great opponents, but I think the Vikings, as the team says, they're a dangerous 0-3. You look at their record, you cannot look at their record, because what do they do well that really concerns the Texans? They run the football well, and last I checked, second halves have been filled with these opponents' rushing yard totals being way too high. So I think the offense playing better in the second half, stringing drives together, not going 3 and out like they did in the Pittsburgh game, being able to hit the end zone a couple of times and keep the defense off the field. This is a balance thing. If they're on the field, you're not. So you stay on the field, keep them on the sideline, make some things happen that way.
So we've seen some struggles in the second half, but like you mentioned, they've moved the ball before the intermission in each of these games. So what gives you hope offensively for these Texans?
Watson is 8th in the league in yards per attempt. That's a pretty good stat right there. That means you are making some big plays. The problem is not enough resulting in the end zone being the final destination. But we've seen some good movement between the 20s, between the 10s in some cases. You got to find a way to run the ball. We all know these things. But I think Watson has a lot to do with it. He can run the ball himself on occasion and sort of ease the burden a little bit, pick up a first down or two with your legs, because he didn't do that much against Pittsburgh. And again, easier said than done, but let's see what he can do against the Vikings.
If he gets integrated, you got to think that frees things up for David Johnson.
Yeah.
Last week, aside from the 2-yard touchdown run, just about every time he was handed the ball, there was already a Steeler in the backfield just a yard or two away, sometimes closer. How have things changed for David Johnson?
Well, if you see that David Johnson's going to get the handoff and there's no threat or not much of a threat of Watson keeping it, well then, all right, let's go. I'll go after David Johnson and see what we can do. But if Watson can run it a little bit, I think it really helps. Last year, Carlos Hyde had 1,000 yards, and give him credit in the O-line and all of that, all the blocking, but also the threat of Watson running the football. If you're a defense, even as a viewer, when you're watching a team that's facing a running quarterback, you're terrified of that guy taking it on the ground with his legs, because you know that that's sort of the unpredictable element, an element that's very difficult to stop. Let's see a little bit more of that perhaps, and we'll see how it works out.
Now, Laramie Tunzel, he's played like the highest paid offensive lineman in the NFL. He's looked good. Titus Howard, the last 2 games, played pretty darn well too. Inside, there's been some struggles. How do these guys jiggle things and maybe improve moving forward?
Well, not facing TJ Watt will help, Chris Jones, those kinds of guys, but the Vikings have some ferocious guys up front as well, so you're just going to have to get better, Drew. I think that we always talk about this, even if you have a full 4-game preseason, how early on in the year the offensive line takes a few games to gel because it's their first time playing together for 60 minutes. Well, now it's their first time playing together, period, against anybody new. And again, I hate to use the schedule as an excuse. It's not an excuse. They got to play better, but they're still gelling up front. We make this big deal about, you got all 5 starters back. When they were together last year, you looked pretty good. But guess what? It wasn't that big a body of work. And here you are only in year 2 for Howard and for Sharping. So they still have to get better and grow and develop. It's only 3 games. Let's see if they can do it. I know they have to do it in a hurry, otherwise things slide out of control.
And with all that in mind, you bring up gelling, you bring up chemistry, all that continuity. Well, the wide receivers, it looks like they were able to get a little bit more on the same page first half-wise, like the rest of this. But they were on the same page for the most part with Deshaun Watson. The growth looks like it's happening there, doesn't it?
It does look like it, and again, you don't have any more time. I mean, you have to get this one, because otherwise you're in need of a miracle finish, which could be very difficult to pull off. And as it is, you might need that anyway. But I do like what I've seen out of Cobb and Cooks, David Johnson as a receiver. Fuller, 2 out of the 3 games, has been terrific. But again, you can't go 3 and out in the second half. Think about this, Drew. If you get a couple of first downs, if you get 3 first downs out of those 3 and outs, that could change the whole universe relative to that football game. Let's see that kind of thing happen. If they continue to go 3 and out and put stress on their defense, they're not going anywhere.
I like it. Let's do more of this. John Harris is going to break down what happened last week with the Randall Cobb touchdown. Let's see more of this. Does it sound good to you? Sounds good to me. Here's a telestrator.
Welcome to Texans Illustrated, presented by BMW. I am your host, John Harris. We'll go back to Pittsburgh and take a look at Randall Cobb's first touchdown as a Texan and the wonderful execution it took to get him into the end zone. So let's go to the surface, powered by Microsoft. All right, first thing you're going to see here, stack receivers. So 4 wides out, actually 3 wides with Jordan. But Jordan a lot of times is considered a receiver type, so I'm cool with that. So 11 personnel. Jordan's going to go motion and get a little bit of a chip on TJ Watt here. But you can see the Steelers in man coverage. Lock up here. They're going to lock up here, and that's the one we're going to look at in a second. They're going to lock up number 20 right here when Jordan goes inside, and they're going to lock up right here Joe Hayden on Brandon Cooks. Minka Fitzpatrick sometimes, and he's a tough safety to play because he might be the one in the middle playing over the top of all this, but he might be feeling one side or the other. He gets caught on this side, but it's not really going to help him on this play, and you'll see why in a second. So there Jordan goes in motion. He's going to get a little bit of a chip. All right, Deshaun's checking things out. He knows what he's got in the secondary. Okay, Jordan's now going to come right here. 20's going to go there. Got this route here. Those 2 man coverage. And this right here is kind of interesting what they tried to do. This guy right here, the safety, Terrell Edmonds, is not going to allow Randall Cobb to come across this way. If he does do it, Edmonds is going to go with him one-on-one. But if Randall then goes this way, Mike Hilton's going to go with him. Okay? And so Edmonds is also waiting to see, is this back, CJ Prosise, who's helping Laramie for a second, is he going to pop out here? And then Edmonds has got to go get that. So the time being, since the back isn't out, he's going to help on Randall. Well, he takes off thinking the back's going to leak out, and that leaves Randall one-on-one. So let's watch this. Randall Cobb go one-on-one on Mike Hilton. We didn't want Hilton here. We wanted Hilton here in coverage. Now it's one-on-one, and he just shakes him. Look at that shake move. He just gets on him, shakes him, and he's got a lot of room to work. That's an excellent move. Look at that right foot, and he's gone. Hilton's just grabbing air, and Deshaun throws the right kind of pass, too. This can't be a bullet because that's probably going to get there too quick. He's got to have a little bit of air, but too much maybe allows Hilton to get there. So it's right in between. Perfect. Cobb catches it, and look, Minka, because he was shielding or playing that side, he can't get there. This is man coverage. He doesn't see the ball. Randall can walk into the end zone. Touchdown Texans, take a lead. Well, I loved seeing that. That was excellent stuff from the Texans. And that's the way, the execution, the level it's got to be for the rest of the year right there. And they'll have a lot more of those touchdowns and maybe more for Randall Cobb.
Oh, well, look at that. Benardrick McKinney and Zach Cunningham are near the tops in the NFL in stops. And as our producer, Tyler Marcotte, explained to us before the show, stops are, quote, tackles that negate a potential large gain. So the Texans are doing a good job of that. Tackles that that negate a potential large gain. Tyler Marcotte just cursed in my ear, so it's all good. Friends, this is Texans Extra Points. Drew, Mark, let's talk a little bit about the defense as we move on forward. It was all offense in the first segment, so what has been different about this defense so far this year as opposed to years in the past? You can always point to run defense and just getting gouged, but there are a few more differences, aren't there?
Well, look, last year was a weird year. You know, you played the Saints on opening day and the defense couldn't stop the Saints, right? But you had a lead up until inside the final minute before Drew Brees scored. You couldn't really move the ball against Jacksonville, but the defense played great, including a 2-point conversion stop. All right, let's just forget about last year for a moment. This year, the issues are, like we said, the offense not holding on to the ball. This puts stress on your defense. You're having a great deal of difficulty stopping the run. Against Pittsburgh, it was a little bit different than it was against the Ravens in that you couldn't set the edge. And they were just leveraging from one side, and they ran out the clock on you. That is the worst thing for a defense. They hate that more than anything because they wanted to get the ball back for Watson in a one-score game. Deshaun Watson, let's give him the ball with 2 minutes to go and let the magic happen. They couldn't make it happen. But we've seen some good things. The last two games were similar in that you come out of the locker room, the opponent has the ball, you allow a long drive, but you hold them to a field goal. Okay, all right, I know they had the ball for a while, but you stopped them with a 3 in the Ravens and Steelers case, but the offense couldn't return the favor and get something going for you, and that is a problem. Bill O'Brien says we're not playing complimentary football. He's right, they need to start.
The last time he played in the stadium, J.J. Watt had 2 sacks, and it was quiet like a library. He's going to have fans here. It's going to help a little bit, I think. But J.J. Watt, what have you seen from him so far? How has he looked to you? We loved what we saw against Baltimore, and he was getting after it a little bit in the other 2 games. But J.J. Watt on the whole, I think he's been fine. You just want to see a little bit more around him, don't you?
Watt in year 10 might not be Watt in year 2, 3, or 4, but it's pretty good. It's a pretty good Watt, right?
I'll take it.
Yeah, exactly, because if you're the opposing offensive coordinator, I always look at it like this. A player like Watt, he keeps you up at night. You still have to figure out ways to stop him, double team him. Do I double or single? How do we handle J.J. Watt? You want those questions asked in the opponent offensive meeting room so they spend time on it and it opens up opportunities for other people. Now, those other people have made some hay, had some sacks or whatever, but you need more of it, even more of it. And you know what's going to help? Having a lead. Oh my goodness, a lead in the second half.
Giddy up,
I know they led going into the fourth quarter against Pittsburgh, but imagine being up a couple of scores. We can really get after the passer. That's where those sacks tend to happen. Let's see what happens.
I'm cool with that. And you're cool with trivia.
Yes.
So hold on, because you're good at trivia. So just give them a chance, okay? Because Denver and New Orleans' Emmanuel Sanders, he's played for both of those teams, as well as Pittsburgh, and which Houston Texans wide receiver are the only receivers in the NFL to catch a touchdown in each of the last 10 seasons. Think about that. That's longevity. That's scoring over 10 years of work. We'll be back in just a minute. This is Texans Extra Points.
Deshaun gets the snap, looking left. Watson dancing, and Watson throwing downfield, and he's got Fuller across the 15, 10, 5. Rock and roll! Touchdown to Will Fuller, and that seals the deal.
Welcome back to Texans Extra Points from the Forward Studios. Drew Dougherty, Marc Vandermeer, and that was a Will Fuller touchdown catch on 3rd and 5 to ice it last year against the Falcons. Why are we talking about Will Fuller and the Texans and the Falcons? Well, I'll tell you why, Marc Vandermeer.
Tell me.
Because that was the first game of October last year. And this is the first game of October this year. And you know what? The first game of October 2 years ago, Will Fuller went bananas. So that's what they do in this first game of October. The Texans do really well. They light things up. So I'm going to stick with that. I'm going to say that's going to happen. And how about we see some of that on Sunday? We'll talk about that in just a moment, but let's talk about Kirk Cousins. This is a guy who he can do some things. Off the play action, especially with Gary Kubiak's offense, you think, well, he could possibly be dangerous. What do you see from Kirk Cousins so far? He's had his problems so far this year.
Throwing picks, Drew. I mean, that's a big problem because he didn't do that last year. You know, with Stefanski as the OC and Kubiak mentoring Stefanski, who's now in Cleveland, and I kind of expected more out of Kubiak in the early going here with this offense. I thought they would be able to, you know, do a lot of that Kubiak stuff, not turn the ball over as much. And, you know, when I say do a lot of that Kubiak stuff, they are. When you look at over 200 rushing yards last week against the Titans, they couldn't hold that lead in the second half. But, you know, I just think that it's going to take, again, some time. It's going to happen. It's like Novocaine, give it time. You just don't want it to happen on Sunday.
Gary Kubiak like Novocaine. You should tell that to him if you see him on Sunday.
He'll like it. It's a Coach Boone quote from Remember the Titans.
It's not bad. It's not bad. Well, he's got Dalvin Cook to work with, too. And Kubiak's known what to do with a good running back. This is certainly one of them.
Can you imagine this? I mean, when this was announced, I thought, uh-oh, he's got Dalvin Cook. And watch out. He's got a really good back. Kubiak can do it without a really good back, okay? But when he has a really good back, watch out. And Cousins running those bootlegs. I mean, Cousins seems like the perfect quarterback. What did Sage Rosenfels always tell us? It's an offense that makes a quarterback feel comfortable. Yeah. So if you're a guy like Case Keenum or somebody like that, getting their first baptism in the NFL, it's good. Cousins is not. He's been around the block for a while. This should work out for him. I'm a little surprised it's not working out better so far, but there's a lot of time left.
It's an offense that also gets wide receivers wide open. Okay, let's talk about players to watch. Your Gatorade player to watch Sunday against the Vikings is, Mark?
David Johnson, and I'll put him in the ensemble of the running game, you know, because to say, oh, David Johnson's got to run the ball better, it's like saying, well, if you see Mick Jagger singing a cappella, you know, he needs the Rolling Stones with him to really make it work, right? David Johnson needs the O-line and everybody blocking to really make it work. So let's put him in that group and say, let's run the ball better, particularly in the second half of these games.
All right, I'm going to go with, hey, it happened 2 years ago, last year, 3 years ago. I'm going to be that guy, and I'm going to go with Will Fuller because he has roasted guys this time of year. Let's see it happen again. He's been close to doing it each of the first and third weeks. Let's see it happen in week 4. It was a monster year monster week for him last year around this time. 3 touchdowns, 200 yards plus receiving. All right, stick with us. We've got to wrap things up here on Texans Extra Points. Don't go away.
Texans Extra Points has been sponsored by BHP and by Reliant, the official energy provider of the Houston Texans, by Amagi Bank, official business bank of the Houston Texans, and by Jameson. Tailgate like a Texan with Jameson Irish Whiskey.
Welcome back. You know, 2 wide receivers in the NFL over the last 10 years have caught a touchdown every single season, at least 1 touchdown. Emmanuel Sanders is one, and Randall Cobb of the Houston Texans is the other. Pretty good stat, huh?
I like that.
Yeah, 2011 he came into the league and he's caught a touchdown every year since.
I like having Randall Cobb on the team.
Yeah.
We're just seeing the seedlings here, but they got to grow up into plants and trees very quickly.
Well, and he talked about in May. He talked about it early August at the start of camp. And then he said the first week of the season, hey, this takes time, this takes time, this takes chemistry. Looks like it's maybe starting to grow into the sapling that you're describing. All right, saplings aside, we got to get into keys to a Texans win. What is your FCCU key to a Texans win? Give me 2, please.
Well, it's easy to say, Drew. I mean, you got to come out of the second half situation a lot better, okay, on both sides of the football. But I think it goes back to what we were saying at the top of the show, which is extended drives on offense in the second half. Even if you're getting field goals, that would have really helped last week, right? End the drive with some points. They couldn't even get into field goal range against the Steelers. That was a problem. So you stay on the field longer, they're on the sideline longer. You keep Dalvin Cook in that running game on the sideline. That's really going to help your cause. Finish the drives, preferably with 7s.
All right, those are that's one key. So in the second half, you got to be better. You got to finish drives. I'm going to go with this. Get off the field on defense. Find a way to get off the field. Whether it is forcing a long field goal, whether it is getting a turnover. Hey, 3 and outs, those are pretty darn good too, and they did that all right in the third quarter last week, but keep it up throughout. Get off the field because when you're on the field longer, you get a lot more gassed. And my second one, I've been banging this drum all season long. I'm going to keep banging it until it happens. Get 2 more takeaways, then you turn the ball over. You've been horrible in turnover differential. You and I have talked about this with DP off air. In 7 of the last 9 regular season games, the Texans have lost the turnover battle. That's not a good thing. You got to get better in that regard.
I'll take +1 on Sunday.
That's cool with me too.
+1. Monty Hall says +1. Will you take the deal?
I will, but I'm greedy. I want +2, Mark. I think that kind of pushes it the other way. I am greedy. Okay, so we gave you our keys to the game. I want to hear yours. Mark wants to hear yours. Go on Twitter, hashtag Texans Extra Points, or if you're kind of new to the Twitter game, put the # and then Texans Extra Points. It works either way. Tell us your keys to the game. All right, Mark, always good having you on.
Thanks,
We're going to have you again very, very soon, and we thank you for watching. We'll be back again, same time, same place. And until then, go Texans. Thanks for watching. Subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to know when we post new content.